Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Megan. I'm the Mood Read Queen. And today's video is, I think I'm making this a series. I think it makes sense because I read a lot of them. But today's video is going to be about another fantasy series. The first one I talked about, and maybe I can do the cards or something. I don't know. But if not, I'll link them in the description as well. But I did a video about the World of a Charm of Magpies series, technically two series in one by KJ Charles. And I also did a video about the Unbreakable Soldiers series by Megan Dare. So both of those are a little bit more obscure. I think this recommendation will also be, if you have some recommendations for fantasy. I don't only read fantasy, like otherwise that would be a title of this channel. But it is something that I kind of gravitate towards, and just depending on my mood, hence the mood reading. So sometimes I'll get in the mood for that. And I really like, I'll preface this also by saying that I don't need the entire story to be a romance, but I do need that romance to feel significant to the development of the characters in a story. So a lot of the books that I read may not be primarily romance. There might be in a lot of the fantasy books I read, there's a good amount of fighting and battles and all sorts of stuff like that, which is great. But that means that there's less time for other stuff. But I feel like that is a good representation of sort of the balance that you have to try to find in life. I say that as someone who has not found that balance. Otherwise, I would be cleaning my house right now instead of recording these videos. But it is what it is, right? We can have fun and record videos. So the series I'm going to talk about today is one that, along with the Captive Prince series, which I will talk about in another video as well, I think people either love it or they don't. Both series have similar criticisms that they are too harsh, they contain really dark scenes potentially with dubious consent or no consent, rape, torture. They are enemies to lovers stories. So I'll just preface all of this video by saying that this series isn't an easy read, and it is, I think, it's much darker, and in my opinion, much more difficult to read than the Captive Prince series was, which, if you've tried that series and weren't a fan, I would highly suggest you read beyond the first book. But that's a story for another day. But this series, I read as a result of the Captive Prince, actually. So, I mean, it's been several years now, 3 years, I think, 4 since I've read the Captive Prince series for the first time. And I've seen this one being recommended the last couple of years, and it just wasn't the right time to read it. And I read it this summer. I actually read it while sitting teaching my summer school class, because I teach a film class in the summertime, and my kids were watching movies, and the first 2 weeks was one semester, and the second 2 weeks was a second semester, but I taught the same class twice. So by the time I got to the second semester, I was I just did this. I just watched all these movies. Help me. So I would just sit in the back with my e-reader and make sure they were doing what they were supposed to be doing when we were watching movies. Otherwise, I was on task teaching them, obviously. But anyway, so there's your background. So let's talk about this series. So it's called the Silk and Steel series. Let me reposition a little bit. It's been written by Ariana Nash. I think it's Ariana Nash. Also, she writes under a couple different names. But this is for her, I think, specifically her adult gay romance fantasy books. And she does have more, not in this series, but other series that these are like a sucker punch, but they're worth it. And I immediately, after finishing this series, was like, okay, I need to read the rest of her books. I don't know if I can do it right now, though. So I added those to my list. She has several different series that if you decide that you want to read this and you like them, I've read some good reviews of the other series as well. So this series is called Silk and Steel. The first book is called Silk and Steel. I'll make sure I put all of them over here. There are several books in this series. So there's a trilogy that is, actually, I keep saying I'm unprofessional as I pull my phone out while I'm doing this, but I just don't jot down notes like I think a lot of other people do. I just like go for it. So, there are technically, how many books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books in the series, and I think that 2 of them are novellas. And I read all of them in the order that was suggested. And there also, I think, is a short story somewhere. I need to look into it. I already read it, but I can't remember what it was called. So, the first book is called Silk and Steel. The second is called Iron and Fire. And then the third is called Blood and Ice, I believe. And then there are some other ones that we'll talk about. So, what in the heck is this series about? I'm going to try to do my very best to explain it to you. But just know that I'm going to be leaving things pretty vague because it can get pretty involved. So, Silk and Steel takes place in a fantasy world. It is dystopian fantasy. And the first book, I spent a lot of the time confused. So if you decide to read this book, just FYI, or the series, you have to be really patient in the first book. And I know that's so hard because you're like, I want the payoff now. Believe me, you will get the payoff and it will be fucking fantastic, okay? It'll be like more than you ever dreamed. But it takes some time to get there. And I didn't hate that. I kept having to remind myself that I knew it was going to get there. I'm also not someone who reads a lot of reviews before I read books, but I did as I was reading the series. I knew that the ending was going to be okay because, she has said, and I think she says it on Goodreads, that, the ending will be okay, but like some shit's going to happen in the interim. But I kind of went through the reviews as I was reading just to kind of keep reassuring myself. So that was how I got through a lot of the series. But again, it's a great series, which is why I'm recommending it. So the first book is the story of Lysander, and I'm going to call him Aaron. His name is not Aaron, okay? It's like Eroan, like Aaron, okay? We're calling him Aaron. I'm just calling him Aaron. Just FYI, that's what I called him in my head when I was reading it, and that's what we're doing. And the world that we're living in is sort of this post-apocalyptic, dystopian fantasy world. And I didn't catch on to that for a hot second, and I don't think you're supposed to. But we hear of a world that used to be, where humans and dragons and elves coexisted. But that world is long since passed. Humans are basically extinct, as are elves, although elves are not quite as rare as humans. And then you've got dragons who are bigger and they have destroyed so many things. And the sort of hierarchy of the dragons is also confusing. My advice is just to go with it and just kind of accept the information that's given to you and go from there. If you really like to know everything, I bet you can find ways of like getting that information. But I just sort of let it be and kind of took in the information as I read it and kind of put it together. So you have all these different kinds of dragons. And Lysander is, he is the son of the queen, the dragon queen. And he is so she has 2 sons and then she had a daughter. And that is something that is covered in the book. So he has an older brother, I believe. Yeah, named Akeem. And then there's Lysander. And Lysander is different. He is special. And he is not necessarily aware of his unique traits and has basically been taught his whole life that he is a piece of trash. He has never felt attracted to women. And I will say, I've said this in all the videos. In some fantasy worlds, you've kind of got, we don't even talk about sexual orientation because it doesn't really matter. In this, it's more of like a power play kind of a thing. So it's not necessarily looked down upon. It depends it depends if you're with the elves or with the dragons, if you're in sort of the UK, Europe realm, or like book 4 takes place in America and they have different notions on it. So there are undercurrents of that, but it's different than you would see today. So it is there. And so he's kind of been shamed his whole life for that. His mother basically hates him, like mental torture. He is this incredible warrior. He is the commander of her flights, or the dragons. But he's never felt like he really belonged. And he's had to sacrifice a lot of himself in order to make sure that he isn't killed. And then you have Aaron. And he is an assassin, an elvish assassin. And he's part of this order of assassins who, like, they're basically, I mean, they have all these other responsibilities, but their main one for the longest time has been to kill the Dragon Queen, because she is kind of the reason all these things are happening. She's a terrible person. She's a terrible queen. Someone in that position of power really could change things, but she doesn't. And I realize that I'm making all these hand motions and my hands are in my lap. Sorry about that. But so Lysander is trying to please her as much as he can, and Aaron is caught trying to assassinate the queen, and he fails, as has everybody who's ever tried. But they don't kill him yet. And Lysander, we start the book where Aaron's already been captured. He's in the dungeon, prison, whatever, and Lysander keeps coming to visit him and is bringing him food and is saying, hey, you need to keep your strength up. And Aaron can't figure out why. And I'm going to be pretty vague in this first book and in general with this series, because I feel like there are a lot of things I don't want to spoil for you. But the first book is very much background driven. Plot-wise, it does move quite slowly. And it feels sometimes like the characters are purposely being kept apart when really they just want to gravitate together, but it's all worth it. So, Lysander's attracted to him. Aaron is attracted to Lysander. Not going to admit it. Aaron is like made of stone. Like his heart is ice. How many metaphors can I have about this? He's cold. Because he has to be, because so many people that he has cared about have died. And his sort of motto is, until it's done. He can't go home until it's done, until the queen is dead. And so the queen takes him, tortures him. There is a lot of torture in this. Like, really. There's, like, people, like, losing limbs. There's blood. There's stitches. There's, like, people being mauled. I mean, and it's not, like, in such incredible detail that I found it, like, horrific, but it is hard to read, because the longer you're with these characters, the more you care about them, and the more you're like, oh, that made me, like, whole body shivers, like, yuck. Ugh, it's so bad. So Aaron is tortured, and eventually the queen is like, I'm going to take you on as part of my, like, harem, basically. And that is like a sucker punch to Lysander, because he's had to take what he can get. And anytime he does, people look down on him, his mother especially. And so he's never been able to out in the open say what he desires. But then there are all these men And are there women in there? I don't think so. There are all these men who like are in the queen's harem, and they can also be together while they're with her. And then Aaron is going to be in there, which he's not excited about at all. But like that's like something that like Lysander wants him. There's something about him, they're drawn to each other, and then he's going to have to watch this shit. Like, he's not happy about it. So what to say and what not to say. Lysander is forced to make a choice when Aaron's life is threatened. And he keeps trying to save him, and Aaron just doesn't get it. And he keeps going back and going back and going back whenever he has opportunities to leave and to escape, because until it's done, he has to kill the queen. Well, she's dead. And he's able to go home. And Lysander doesn't know where to go, because he spent his whole life trying to make his mother happy. He had a sister once that he loved, but she's dead. His brother has been a thorn in his side his whole life, antagonizing him, trying to kill him, and they get into they have a conflict. And so Aaron is going back home to, I forget where he lives, but there are various elven settlements, and he can finally say it's done, and he can go try to live his life. And he's been gone a long time. I don't know how long, but he's also not in a good state. Like, this guy has experienced some real shit. Like, if this world had therapists, like, these men need it. And then, so Lysander goes to the bronze dragons. So he's an amethyst. It's kind of interesting, but he has green eyes, so he's emerald. But he doesn't know what that means. And his mother, as like a power move, basically sold him off to, his name was Dokul, and his daughter Mirian, and he's supposed to like breed with her, basically. And there's like a hierarchy, like I said, of dragons. You have like the gold and the silver, but they're not there anymore. And then there was bronze, and they're like big, brutish, very strong. In human form, they look like, I don't know, like stereotypical or like just like beefy warriors. And then the amethysts are like less so, maybe not lanky, but definitely not like the beefcakes. And they technically shouldn't be as strong as they're not as strong physically as the bronze are, but Lysander's mother was like manipulative, and so she actually became queen and had power over everything else. And so anyway, Lysander's like, I don't know where else to go, so he actually goes to Dokul, and he's like, okay, well, I was supposed to be like, you know, with your daughter, whatever. He doesn't want that, but he doesn't know what else to do. So he's kind of like seeking sanctuary, which there is no sanctuary to be found. Maybe there would have been if he had gone with Aaron, but he didn't. And so, and I'm trying to remember where each book starts and stops, honestly. Because I cannot for the life of me remember. That's a good thing to remember in the middle of a summary, isn't it? So anyway, Aaron is going home, reuniting with the elves, and then Lysander is going to the other dragons. And what happens after that? Basically, after their experience together, I think they have like one or two kisses where there's a potential for something to happen, but nothing does. They have perspective that the conflicts that are happening within their world cannot be, like, they can't fix them on their own, and they can ignore them. And yes, the Dragon Queen is dead, but the dragons are still incredibly dangerous, and they're not all like Lysander. No one's like Lysander. Like, everybody wants conflict and people dead, and they want to like defeat all the other the elves and the humans, but Lysander doesn't have any interest in that. And so the series really is kind of following that storyline, and following also the development of Aaron and Lysander's relationship. The second book, which is... Where did it go? I'm doing such a good job, guys. I'm really killing it. The second book is called Iron and Fire. And in this book, you get more development of Lysander and Aaron's relationship. But honestly, they spend a lot of this book apart. So, like, they're not together in the first book. It's their they're in the same place at the beginning, and then they go their separate ways. They are also separate in this book for a really, really good chunk of the book, because it's not about them being together yet. They've barely had time together, but they know there's something there. But that thing between them, between a dragon, the dragon shifters, I guess hopefully you understood that. And then an elf, like mortal enemies. Like, that can happen until it's fixed. And so Lysander has basically been like taken captive. I mean, he willingly went to the bronze dragons, but now he's like, it's not super great. And Dokul really wants him. There's something about him that he really wants, and that's Miran's father. Miran is supposed to be like Lysander's mate, and he basically has to have sex with her. It's like not good. I mean, he's drugged up, and it's not a great situation. And again, there's a lot of like rape and non-consensual sex and dubious consent in this, because the elves. This is just with the dragons. The elves don't have anything to do with that, and neither do the humans. But the dragons are very, like, barbaric and instinctual. I mean, they're dragons. And both human and dragon form, they don't communicate to solve their problems. It's like physical brute strength. And this power play is really dramatic. And so it's like, it made sense that that's how they were like solving problems. I know that sounds terrible to say, and people are incredibly traumatized by like what happens. Lysander is traumatized. And then later Lysander's brother Akeem, but it made sense for me. And I think that people might struggle with in terms of reading this series, because if you pull it out of context, like really, really dark stuff, and even in context, it might be hard to read, but at the same time, it felt true to the story that was being told, if that makes sense. So, and also she has a good job of like doing trigger warnings. So the second book is Aaron trying to convince his people that they should fight back. And they don't want to. It's not our fight, right? We can't do this. Like, we should just keep doing what we've been doing. And Aaron is like a man of action. And he has, I can't remember her name now. Also, I should look it up. Because she was totally presh. I can't remember, but kind of like a daughter figure. She's a younger elf who really looks up to him, and she's just fantastic. And so when he left Lysander, he had Lysander's swords, and he kind of puts two and two together because he still has them, and he realizes that the swords were the only thing that injured the Dragon Queen. And they were made from dragon teeth. So he's like, okay, people, we need to act. Let's go find some like dragon skeletons. Let's get these teeth and like let's make weapons that we can use to fight, because we're gonna die, all of us. Like, we're never gonna last because of this complete monopoly that's not a good word, but like the destruction that the dragons can continue to bring to all people. And so let me just see. They do have a reunion. So the whole book, you're like, oh my God, these people, I know they have a connection, Aaron and Lysander. Why aren't they together? Let's go. But that's not what it's about yet. So they are reunited. They do like give in to their feelings for each other. They finally have a moment to do that. Lysander has been like horribly brutalized. Like, it's not good. So he's got some stuff to work through. Aaron also had bad experiences in the first book, but how do I say this? It wasn't as bad, and not that negates his experiences by any means, but Lysander's experiences were much worse. And there is trauma, and they do talk about it, and like you get to see how they're dealing with it. How Lysander, I think Aaron actually goes for Lysander. I think he goes to save him, is what happens, and get him back. And he ends up working with humans, and you kind of get some more information about like the world and how more humans used to exist, and how like we are in like, this is after like World War IV or something. And the reason why there are amethyst dragons is because the humans tried to like nuclear bomb the dragons that existed, like the bronze dragons, and they mutated. It's really cool and freaky and interesting. So anyway, the second book is them kind of working on their own, Lysander being in a really tough spot, Aaron trying to convince the elves that they should fight back, and then they're reunited at the end. The third book then becomes more of a focused, if we want to be together, and maybe they don't put it into words like that, but that's really what it is. If we want to be together and if we want peace, this is what has to happen. And so they are separated again during this book, and Lysander has more of a discovery about himself, about who he is as a dragon, as a man, and Aaron is continuing the work that he started in the second book, working with humans and elves. And of course, you can probably see this coming, but the only way you're going to find peace is if everybody's working together. And who in the dragons is willing to work with them? Lysander. And so you get some really cool stuff with Lysander's character and how he might be the key in all of this. And that's the third book, which is the Blood and Ice. And I'm not doing a great job explaining this to you. I'll just be honest, because I like flew through these books, and the world building is really cool, but it's definitely a series where you just have to sort of like let it be and read it and just like be in it and be willing to be confused for a while, but know that it's going to get there in the end. And it has really great characters, side characters as well. And the slow burn is real. Like, the slow burn is like, ouch. It's real, but it's good. It's so good. And then the fourth book. Okay. So in the second book, you get to see a little bit more with Lysander's older brother, Akeem. And Akeem has long, dark hair, and he wears a lot of black. And he has some Kylo Ren vibes. And the minute he did anything close to being nice, I was 100% invested in a potential redemption storyline. Okay? 100%. So that does come about in the third book. He becomes more involved. But at the end of the third book, his future in sort of this European setting is like at an end, really. And everyone thinks he's dead. And so he has the fourth book, and that he flies to America, and he's damaged and traumatized. He was in a very similar situation to Lysander, who had been basically like raped and brutalized repeatedly by this Dokal character. And Akeem was in that same situation in the third book. So he wasn't with him for as long, but Akeem has way more trauma than any of us realized, and he and Lysander could never really openly talk about anything, and you realize how big of an issue that was. Because Akeem is like, also, he did a better job of hiding it. Lysander was really open about it, but Akeem, like 100% not into ladies, or not into ladies. I think, anyway, he might be, is he bi? No, I'm pretty sure he's gay. But his mother dealt with him in a different way than she dealt with Lysander. So Lysander was like forged into steel, basically. Whereas Akeem was locked away for long periods of time. He cuts himself. Like, he has like a darker, quieter, I want to say darker, because both Lysander and his stories are bad. Like, their mom traumatized both of them. But the difference is Lysander doesn't think anything's wrong with Akeem, and that nothing bad has happened to him, and he's like the perfect son. Whereas Akeem not only feels guilt for himself, but also for what he's done to his brother in trying to appease his mother. And so that one's called The Black Prince. And this book, oh my God, it was so good. Like, I freaking loved it. It was worth everything. It was worth everything to read the first three books, because by the time you get to the end of the three books, like, it's a good ending. It feels momentous. It feels like something big happened. The second half of the second book is truly, truly fantastic. But the fourth book is able to take all of that time-intensive world building from the first three books and translate that into another setting. So instead of a European setting, we're now in America. The hierarchy is a bit different, but you're able to take that and transfer it, and you get Akeem's story. And I would not read Akeem's story by itself. I really would read all the books. Again, just be in the right headspace for it, because he's got a lot to work through. And he ends up meeting this elf, of course, the elves, right? And he already has a soft spot for the elves now because of Aaron, and what is this guy's name? Zane. Okay, so Zane is this elf that Akeem meets, and he is kind of like a paid bodyguard for one of the lords in like the court in America. And there's actually peace in America. Like, the dragons are still in a position of power, but and like the elves have to like pay a price for living, but they're still alive and not being attacked constantly. And the portrayal of trauma in this book in particular was, I think, incredible. He can't stand to be touched. He has panic attacks, Akeem does, and I just thought it was really well done, and it was fascinating to see this story in America. And some of the critics of this particular book, I read a review where it was saying that the love story between Akeem and Zane happened too quickly, but I disagree. I think it makes sense for them. I think the longer story due to mostly circumstance, made sense for Aaron and Lysander. But, you know, that's just my opinion. I will say this series, in one of my reviews, I said it comes sometimes this close to torture porn, and sometimes it can. But again, I think it feels true to the series, which is something that you really have to keep in mind, because I think I've talked about this before, but I try to figure out what's best for the characters and for the series. And I really can't be mad if I think the author is doing that. I usually get mad when it feels like it's not being true. So anyway, it was a fantastic, fantastic book. As for the other ones, so there's a short story called Sealed with a Kiss, which is about Aaron and a messenger named, what's his name? I can't remember, but it's a quick read, and it's just when Aaron realizes that he may like men and women, but men. And then, I think women. And then, yes, it's a bisexual elf and a gay dragon shifter. That's what it is. Then Lost and Found is a novella. And this is about Trey, who is the messenger, who gets roped into the events of the second and third book. I think he becomes an honorary member of the Elven Assassin League, or whatever we're calling it. But this is what happens after. So we're at peace now. So this is book 3.5, basically. We're at peace. The dragons aren't a problem. Aaron and Lysander are off spelunking, like traveling, you know, because they're not ready to settle down yet. And Trey is getting back to his old life. And then the Elven assassins start dying. And someone, like, are they being murdered? Are they committing suicide? What's up? And so there's one of the lead, like, golden boy, like, elven assassins is this guy named Ventali. And, oh my God, I loved him. So good. It's so good. And he and Trey have a thing. And there are a couple scenes in here I wasn't super fond of, because Ventali also has a thing with this other guy that, like, it's just sort of a casual thing. But so there's like two scenes, I think, maybe, where there's like a threesome situation going on, but it's more of an opportunity to get Ventali and Trey together, and then it's just, oh my God, it's so good. So Trey is trying to find his place again, because he misses being on the road and he misses delivering messages, but also, could he have a home? Because he's never had one before, and maybe it feels comfortable to him for him to travel because he's never had a place to call his own. But does he have a place now? Like, if he decides to pursue this thing with Ventali, who has a crush on him. Anyway, so there's that one. And then you also have this book called Reunion, which is a novella. It's 4.5. And this is the reunion between Akeem and Lysander. So Aaron brings Lysander to America, having heard rumors of the Black Prince, this beautiful, like, obsidian dragon who saved elves. And they go, and it's not the best thing ever, but I will say was really nice, because you get to see Lysander and Akeem actually talk to each other and realize they have so much more in common with each other than they ever thought possible. And then Zane and Aaron, who are the elves, kind of have this whole, like, we got them together. Like, they're just those brothers. They had to talk it out. Anyway, so the series, I don't know if I did a good job telling you about it, but it really built. And by the time I got to middle of the second book, I mean, I was very invested in these characters. And it's hard because you want them to be happy, but that's not what this book is about. And so they'll be happy eventually, but we have a lot of pain until then. And the pain is happening because of this terrible world they live in. And how do they fix that? And how do you create a better world? And how do you work together for that? And then the fourth book was just a beautiful gift. It was so good and amazing. And I loved it so much. And yeah, so just don't forget about those trigger warnings, because those are real. But I think it's worth the read. And there are some truly beautiful lines. Reading it, you're just, holy shit. Like, it just gets you. These beautiful, beautiful quotes, the way that they profess their love to each other or for each other, confess to each other, profess for. It's just really, really great. So I'm coming in probably around the same time I thought I was going to. If you check it out, let me know what you think. I'll keep doing this series. I've got a ton of fantasy that I've read. I didn't really realize I'd read that many, but I'm not surprised. I will eventually talk about Captive Prince, which is definitely not nearly as traumatic as this series, although I can see why people make comparisons. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.